Champions League's happened. You might have noticed. You might not have noticed. Lord knows it's certain. Will you shut up? I'm trying to record. It's like they have no, possible understanding of how important this could possibly be. But I realized that I had missed some, various European competition recordings. And even though I am currently involved in a Rust tournament, because, I'm a hardcore gamer and I play games like Rust and Rust tournaments now, it involves me streaming 15 hours a day. We got to take a break from that in order to talk about Champions League qualifying, because specifically Kairat Almaty against Olympiacos, the match everybody was tuned in for. Kairat Almaty getting to host a team from Greece all the way over in eastern Kazakhstan. What more could you possibly want? And Kairat Almaty has finally ended up probably where they belonged the entire time. I mean, I love the fact that they managed to battle themselves into the Champions League group stage, but this was a win Olympiacos absolutely had to get. Okay, Olympiacos is a team that has ambitions to be able to reach the knockouts. They are now within striking distance of those ambitions. They are only 2 points away, but this was a win it had to get. Like, if they did not win this match, there was just not going to be a chance for them to get there. And to Kairat Almaty's credit, it took till the 73rd minute for it to happen. Bayern Munich continues to be one of the three or four best teams in the entire world. They beat Sporting 3-1. This was a taken care of business kind of operation for them that nearly went sideways, but after an own goal, they got 3 goals in the second half, and all was good. Leonard Carl, my boy Leonard Carl, scored a goal, all of 17 years old. You want to feel old? This guy was born in 2008. Congratulations. You're old. So am I. Atalanta and Chelsea. Disappointment here for Chelsea. They have a very real chance to get a top 8 qualification out of the Champions League, but they have, this is one of those swing matches, right? Atalanta, particularly in Italy, not an easy match. This is the type of team that you don't blink an eye if they are in the round of 16 of the Champions League, right? They have built their team the right way. They have a great structure. They have a great tactical understanding. And if you are not on your game, they can catch you, right? Somehow they've never really managed to compete for the actual title in Italy. That is a surprise to me, but I always have a lot of respect for Atalanta when you see them pop up on their schedule or on anybody's schedule. Winning goal was 83rd minute, and it was a comeback for Atalanta at home. Charles de Ketelaere, former football manager, wonder kid, bagging the goal for Atalanta to win the match themselves. That puts them on 13 points after 6 matches, 4 wins. They lost their opening match. They have, gotten 13 points from the next 4, 10 points from the next 4. I hate math, okay? And then Chelsea, if they'd won this match, they would have been the one on 13 points. So, it was like a swing match for them. They're now in 13th. It's not over, right? They do still have a couple of opportunities to close that 3-point gap, but this was huge for them overall. They've got Paphos, which should be a win, but then at Napoli. Right, and this is the match, assuming no disaster strikes at home against Paphos, this is the match on the final match day that if Chelsea can go to Italy and win this time, then they should be able to get up there with 16 points. But it's not guaranteed. They don't control their own destiny, and that's not a place that you want to be. Eintracht Frankfurt got out with a great start in the first half. They had a 1-0 lead going into the half against Barcelona, but as you've seen already kind of a trend in this round, turnaround in the second half. Barcelona gets a couple of goals, and even though both the big La Liga teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona, have been sputtering a bit, honestly, every La Liga team has been sputtering a little bit when it comes to European competition or just in general. There don't seem to be any spectacular teams at that level. Barcelona is able to hang up a win. If they'd lost this match, it would have gotten spicy. They would have been on 7 points, which would have been obviously tied for the drop in this area. Eintracht Frankfurt, we've talked about it basically every time we go through this round of matches. They're a better team than this, but for some reason they cannot put it together. So what do they have left on their road, right? Barcelona is now sitting on 10 points. They're tied with Chelsea. They got a couple of matches maybe to try and jump all the way up. They've got Qarabag and then at home against Tottenham. This should be a win, but Qarabag, the best Azeri team, just seems to be unkillable in the Champions League. They put up another amazing fight, as you were probably aware of, in the Champions League in this round. And then this Tottenham match. Eintracht Frankfurt can win both of those matches. And to be real, they probably need to at this point if they don't want to get knocked out in the league stage. They did not have an easy run, but still. Liverpool trying to save itself here with a 1-0 win at Inter. Reports of Arne Slot's demise greatly exaggerated. Clearly something's wrong with them, but an 88th minute penalty from Soboslai, who always puts the ball in the same corner, so shout out to him. He's kept Liverpool afloat. right? And they are right on the edge now of being in the top 8 and getting that bye, which is the statement that you can make in the Champions League. 2 matches left for them. Inter, I mean, look, playing Liverpool is always going to be tough, but now you're looking at back-to-back losses to Atletico Madrid and Liverpool after 4 straight wins to start. They have, plummeted back towards the line. Okay, it looked like Inter might coast to that round of 16 spot, and everybody and their mother wants to be in that top 8, so you get a first round bye. Now Liverpool and Inter. This result helped accordion things in that area of the table. Monaco and Galatasaray. This is definitely one of those that's completely up in the air. Monaco was able to pick up the win after a missed penalty from Denis Zakaria. The American, Folarin Balogun. Excellent work. 68th minute. America, her spacious skies, an amber wave. Anyways, the win brings Monaco back into the playoff fold and knocks Galatasaray down. They're coming on 2 straight losses with that loss at home against Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, which doesn't feel nice either. And all of a sudden, things are looking way less good for a team that beat Liverpool earlier in this competition. That was a free 3 points. They've now shipped 2 straight matches, and there is a real possibility Galatasaray could plummet all the way out, right? Because they're blowing some of their easier matches to play. They've got Manchester City and Atletico Madrid left. It's going to be a surprise if they win either of those matches, particularly at Manchester City. Atletico Madrid, speak of the devil, they won 3-2 at PSV. This was an impressive result. They went down early, then shot out in front 3-1. PSV made it spicy at the end with another American Ricardo Pepi scoring a goal in the 85th minute. Atletico Madrid's had a very, very strange up and down round of things. They lost 2 of their first 3 matches, but now wins over RUSG, Inter, and PSV on the road have sent Atletico Madrid into the top 8 consideration. Right? I mentioned all those La Liga teams are floundering. Atletico Madrid's turned it around. And they're not actually the only one. Barcelona and Real Madrid still have a bit of a weird vibe going on, but some of the other Spanish teams are starting to figure it out. Belgian side Royal Union Saint-Gilloise have already gotten multiple mentions, lost 3-2 at home to the Flying Penitentiary Marseille. Marseille jumped to a 3-1 lead with a couple of goals from he who shall not be named. And then Kalaili in the 71st minute. My bad. Dude, you're playing in the Champions League and I'm not, and I can't say her name. I'm an idiot. So after a win to start the competition, Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, who was coming into this in their first, real European group stage here, their first shot at the Champions League, they are plummeting out, and it looks like they have lost their momentum to be able to stay in. While Marseille, a team that just seems destined to be in the playoff round, like somewhere between 9 and 24 in the Champions League table, is staying exactly where you would expect. 0 surprises from them. And speaking of 0 surprises, Tottenham wins 3-0 at home against one of those happy to be there teams in Slavia Prague, who are still believing. They've drawn half of their matches so far. They've been a thorn in the side, but they need to find a win. As for Tottenham, they are chasing the elusive top 8 finish, but they're probably going to have to get 4 points from their last 2 matches, at least, to be able to jump up there. We head over to Wednesday to check on the action, and that's where things got spicy for Qarabag and Ajax. Qarabag jumped out to the lead twice at home against the Giants from the Netherlands, 1-0 and 2-1, but obviously Ajax continues to lean on them. Oscar Glauch, former Football Manager wonderkid, scores 2 of the goals, and they end up with a 4-2 win against an incredibly stubborn and obstinate Qarabag team that is playing its way potentially into a playoff position. I mean, just look at this. That's Ajax's first 3 points. That's what put Kairat Almaty at the bottom. As Ajax had not won a Champions League match. Now, they could win their next 2 and then somehow get into the playoff anyways. That would be remarkable, considering they were on 0 points after 5 matches. But when you look at what they have left, Villarreal on the road and then Olympiacos at home, you might start to believe. The Yellow Submarine hasn't been great. Maybe Ajax can get that win. And at home against Olympiacos, they might be a betting favorite. Even though Olympiacos has more points than them in the table right now, Ajax is definitely a bigger budget, higher paid team, higher prestige team by magnitudes, even though Olympiacos has the more recent European trophy. Don't mean to point that out, just saying. It'd be a pretty crazy comeback. Qarabag, on the other hand, is starting to slip with their back-to-back losses. They also lost at Napoli. They've only got 1 point from their last 4 matches. I don't see them being able to hold on to a playoff spot, although it would be a lot of fun if they did. They've got Eintracht Frankfurt and then away against Liverpool. I think it's a surprise if they can get a point from those two matches, but who knows? Eintracht Frankfurt hasn't been great. Villarreal at home against Copenhagen. This was a wild shootout. It was a couple of leads for Copenhagen. They finally got the last one from Cornelius, the big Dane, in the 90th minute in order to give them the win, and that probably sinks the Yellow Submarines' hopes. It puts Copenhagen, though, as you've probably seen with us looking in the table, it puts them in the last playoff spot with that win. They were on 1 point. They've now beaten Kairat Almaty and Villarreal. Villarreal's tied with Kairat Almaty on 1 point. I have no idea what's going on with them. They're having a pretty good season in La Liga. They just have not been able to get the results that they need. Their only point at all was a draw against Juventus, which is obviously impressive, but they've lost, to Paphos. They've lost at home against Copenhagen. They got smoked by Dortmund. It's just been a bad go for Villarreal, and they're probably one of the two teams that's out. If they win both their matches, they will get to 7 points, and that is, exactly where there are only 3. It's just not going to happen. Villarreal and Kairat Almaty have basically no path to be able to get into any sort of Champions League knockout. I mentioned another team in Spain that had started to turn their results around. A draw against PSG is great. A 0-0 draw against PSG is amazing. This is a team that had won 4 of its 5 Champions League matches, coming in with the only loss being a 1-goal loss to Bayern Munich, right? This is a team that should have been rolling. Well, now Bilbao's got back-to-back draws. Slavia Prague is one thing, but PSG is a whole other ball of wax. And so Athletic Bilbao is looking like they might have a shot to get to the playoff, right? PSG looks like a shoe-in to be in the top 8. I'd be surprised if they bottled it. Athletic Bilbao, if we take a look at the fixtures so far, if we take a look at the fixtures coming up, they've got Atalanta away and then Sporting at home. That is a winnable duo of matches. I think all they have to do is hope that their match against Atalanta, which goes first, does not put them out of touch. They lose that match and then all of a sudden the playoff moves too far away from them and they can't get to it anymore, because I think they will be able to win against Sporting in that final match if it comes down to that. Newcastle, the team that is proverbially always on the edge against Bayer Leverkusen, who after getting Ten Hag'd at the start of the season has managed to turn things around. 88th minute equalizer from the talisman Alex Grimaldo after Newcastle just took the lead in the second half from Bayer Leverkusen on the road. So that stun locks Newcastle, tied with Chelsea, Barcelona at 10 points in the playoff positions. It's going to come down to whether they can get a win in those last 2 matches. And for Bayer Leverkusen, they have now put together 7 points in their last 3 to turn around what was an abysmal start to the Champions League campaign and put themselves firmly in a playoff position at the moment, one that they don't need to worry about too much right now. Benfica and Napoli. Big win for Benfica. And this one hurts for Napoli too. This is the team that lost to Qarabag to start this campaign. They have now beaten Napoli 2-0. And that, when I say big, this keeps Benfica alive, really. They are right next to the playoff now, and a big loss for Napoli because the reigning Italian champions are now sitting there staring up at 22 teams. Right, they're right on the edge of the playoff, and all the teams, they're sandwiched between Qarabag and Copenhagen. I can't imagine that is how they dreamed this would go. Club Brugge, who came into this on a very big hot streak, have gotten smoked by Arsenal, who are the only perfect team remaining. In fact, the only team that has not suffered a Champions League loss, let alone drop the point. They're on 18 points, and they are rolling. You get nothing for finishing first in the league stage, but they are already 6 points clear of the playoff zone. That means Arsenal's basically going to be able to rotate wholeheartedly for the final 2 matches of the Champions League, because that bye has already basically been cinched. Bodo Glimt on the road, usually not pretty, but they manage a pretty impressive draw thanks to a late 75th minute goal to equalize against Borussia Dortmund. Got to feel like this is points dropped for Dortmund. This has not been the year for Bodo Glimt in Europe. The draw moves them up to 3 points from 6 matches. They're going to need to get results at home. They've only got 1 more match at home, and it's against Manchester City. So I'm thinking Bodo Glimt is probably cooked down here towards the bottom of the table. As weird as it sounds, they likely needed to win this match. For Dortmund, if they'd won this match, they would be sitting in the top 8 right now. They would have bumped Atletico Madrid out. So very disappointing result for Borussia Dortmund. But if you look ahead for them, you get a clearer picture about what to expect, because they're probably not going to get that top 8 anyways. They've got a road trip to Tottenham. They're at home against Inter. That is a very difficult final two matches for Dortmund. The good news is they definitely have enough points to be safe in the playoff, you would think. Juventus beat Paphos 2-0, so the resilient Cypriot team has been bumped out of the playoff positions for the moment, but this is a result that you would have expected. It's only their second loss in 6 matches played, which is kind of crazy. Juventus is the type of match that if they didn't win, it would have been a 5-alarm fire, but they did, so they're pulling themselves into those playoff positions the way they needed to. And of course, the one match that you were probably here to hear me talk about in the first place, Manchester City winning at Real Madrid. Yeah, I mean, Real Madrid just, let's not pretend Manchester City is lighting the world on fire this year. They're obviously a very, very, very good team, but Real Madrid just seems to be sputtering at the moment. They've lost 2 of their last 3. They lost to Liverpool. They lost to Manchester City. Those showdowns with the big teams. Right. I mean, they're hanging up wins, but honestly, pretty easy schedule. They got a win at Olympiacos. It was 4-3. They survived Juventus at home. They beat the Kazakh team, Kairat Almaty. Those are 3 of their 4 wins right there. They're the most recent ones. Real Madrid's mojo, I mean, look, they can play dead and come back and pull it off, but there just seems to be that weird air around Xabi Alonso, and this type of result, it does not help. This type of result definitely does not help, especially when you assess like XG and it's not looking good. They had 1 shot on target the entire match. That's the goal. So it's a precarious situation for Real Madrid. They've lost the lead in La Liga. They are now slipping down potentially out of the top 8 in the Champions League again, which they do not want to be doing. Big win, by the way, for City, because it's thrown them into the top 8 on 13 points. So they're really happy because you're not going to have another match that's that difficult if you're Manchester City. Like, I'd love to get distracted talking about Real Madrid, but City's got to run in at Bodo Glimt and at home against Galatasaray. Now, at Bodo Glimt in January is going to suck, but this should be a win. At home against Galatasaray should be a win. Wouldn't be surprised if they got drawn against Bodo Glimt just because of how difficult that is. But that might be good enough to get that top 8. And I'm sure Pep Guardiola would tell you they should be winning both of those matches real comfortably. And they might. Who knows? Who knows how well? I mean, they do have a Norwegian striker. That guy should be able to handle the snow. But Real Madrid is not cooked. They're not even close to cooked. All right, but it is clear that they are not humming on all cylinders, that this new version of the Galacticos that they've assembled with the incredibly talented players they have isn't quite clicking, and that they are struggling to find enough defenders in some cases to put on the field somewhere. And that is a problem when you're coming up against Manchester City that, I mean, they're not all the way, but it feels like they're starting to figure it out, doesn't it? Anyways, Champions League setting up for a really dramatic finish, particularly around the bottom of the table between teams like Qarabag and Napoli. And isn't that what the Champions League is all about?